And Andrea, take it away.
Okay. Let me just get the screens all set up right. All right, and everybody can see that agenda slide. Or actually, let me full zoom it. Looks good. All right.
Yes.
Yeah. So as Renee said, we'll kind of give, especially for those who haven't been able to participate before or are new, we will kind of talk a little bit about what the New Jersey Student Climate Challenge is. We'll talk a little bit about what are some lessons learned from the pilot, which was actually 2 years ago now, and also as we expanded to statewide last year, some of the additional kind of tips and tricks that we've picked up on the way that we want to pass on to all of you. Then we will be sharing some of the resources that have been kind of accumulated over the years that we'll be sharing out via links, and also some of our resource documents. And then I know, as a former teacher and current educator, the rubrics are really important. So knowing kind of what the end goals are for your students, I want to spend some time kind of talking about what are the main components of the rubrics that the student submissions will be scored on by myself and others, part of the whole scoring team, just so that everyone's kind of clear about where expectations are, so that you can hopefully help guide your students to make some really successful projects. And then towards the end, I imagine we'll have some time to ask questions, but yeah, former middle school as a teacher and current undergrad and grad faculty, so feel free to interrupt me. I don't take any offense to it. If something's not clear, please feel free to just unmute. We're such a small group, you don't even have to raise your hand, so just feel free to unmute and interrupt me if you have any questions or would like clarification for anything. There'll be a couple of times that I think Renee will be able to drop some links into the chat as we go, but also we will be sending out these slides as a follow-up tomorrow or the next day, sometimes in the next couple of days, and all of the links will be active in the slides that you receive as well. So if you don't have time to copy everything down from the chat, they'll be available to you at a later time as well. But yeah, great. All right. So what is the climate challenge kind of in essence? So basically what the climate challenge is geared for students in grades 6 through 12. I don't think we have that situation tonight, but if, for example, you taught at a grades 4, 5, 6 school, your 6th graders would be eligible, but the 4th and 5th graders would not be. And we do that mainly because we're trying to align with next generation science standards, along with some of the climate standards that are driven more for the middle school and high school. But as I tell my elementary pre-service teachers, climate change definitely fits in elementary as well, but that's a whole other topic that we can talk about. But anyway, so with your students, we're hoping that they're working collaboratively. So we're thinking, grades or groups of at least 2 students, hopefully up to about 12. And I know for many of us, that class size is more than 12, right? So if you have 2 teams per 1 class period, that's totally fine. And we'll talk a little bit later when you get down to planning those projects. How could those projects be similar enough that they could still be kind of during the same unit that you're teaching, or kind of dovetail very nicely if you have one large, let's say, environmental club, but still be distinct enough that they count as 2 separate projects. We'll talk about some strategies around that, or if anybody has questions, we can certainly hit that towards the end. But
I mean, it could be even more than 2 if you could.
Yeah. I didn't mean to limit. Yeah, definitely could be whatever size is manageable for your students and the type of project. Because in essence, what we'll be asking these groups of students to be doing is create, kind of plan and complete a climate action project. So the climate action project is going to be kind of either community-based or school-based. When we were first starting out, we were a little looser with our expectations around it could also be like just individual homes, but now that we're out of COVID and we're at least, a bit more, we can be more community or school oriented as opposed to just individual. So that's really where we want to continue to see these projects be more broadly based. And so those projects should be relating to climate action, either directly kind of connected to the human causes of climate change, or diminishing some of the negative impacts of climate change on the environment in your local community. And then in addition to just doing the project itself, doing the action, we're asking the student teams to kind of create a digital story, which is a kind of like a fun video that kind of tells a little bit about the team, the project, you know, some of the challenges, some of the successes. So a little bit more about than just, this is what we did, kind of very cut and dry. We want a little bit more narrative put in there as well about why this was something important to the team members, the students, what was the inspiration, those kind of like connections, kind of a little bit more captivating for the audience who will be watching these videos. The general timeline for this year's climate challenge is anytime between now and February. We want to encourage teacher registration. So I think we'll put the link in the chat, but what it means to register is not like writing in stone that you will definitely be submitting a project. We hope you do, of course, but it helps to give us a general idea of who is going to be participating or who is likely to be participating. You know, if you're one teacher and you know you will likely have 8 projects that you'll be submitting, that just kind of helps us to gauge, you know, the where things are going for is how many scorers we need, because you'll see at the end of the semester or end of the school year, the time frame kind of really tightens up because the submissions are generally due at the end of March, as you can see. And then we have the quick turnaround of just 1 month to organize folks to view all of the video submissions that get submitted and score them, and then have an awards ceremony in June, which will be held this year again at Drumthwacket Mansion, which is the governor's residence. And have to do all of that before the end of the school year, which I know for some of us is much earlier than others. So, you know, there's a lot to kind of do. And so that's why registering is really important for us to kind of keep an eye on our teams and our participation.
And to also keep you updated on
Yeah.
new things or
If there's
resources that come
extensions or
out. Yeah.
resources,
Mhm.
Yep. If there's any
And
changes.
I
Yeah.
have a question about that. So I had registered, but Maddie hadn't at that. I didn't add Maddie at that time. Should I register with Maddie? And then also that's when I first registered, I just registered myself and then students. But it seems like we're going to have multiple groups of students doing different things. So should I register each of those students and what their main project is going to be, or is it okay that we're just registered as EHG High School?
Yeah, it's okay that you're
yeah.
registered as EHG High School. Yeah. And if Maddie wants to register just so that she's on our email list, then that's fine.
And
Are you working with the same group of students?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so about how many like projects do you think your groups are going to be doing?
I think 3, maybe 4.
Okay.
We're doing it with our environmental action club, so it's outside of school time students.
Gotcha.
And
Okay.
then a question about the educational session. So I was trying to show the students at our last meeting the videos that have been done, you know, like 2 years ago, but it was saying that they weren't linked anymore.
Oh, okay. We will check those because that was going to be the next thing that I share with everyone is that we're not adding new sessions this year, but the links I thought
they are there. I mean, if you go all the way down to the page, the ones from the first year, it's a PDF, but they should be linked.
And then you can click from there.
Okay. All right. So it's from the PDF. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, because the videos from the, let's see, last year, so 21, 22, and from 2021, all those sessions should be available for students.
Yeah, if you go, I'll put the link in the if you go on the previous recording, let's see, just remember the name of the page. It's session recordings. It's the you just go down all the way to the end and then you can click on the year before and it should be there.
Oh, I must be in incognito. I'm like, why is it not popping up? I'll pull up the link in a little bit. But yeah.
I'll send you the direct link to that. You want the ones from the first year, Krista?
Yes, those ones from the first year, because we have students doing. We looked at videos from previous years and those were really helpful of the winners and the finalists.
Mhm.
That's what we spent time in our last meeting doing. And I thought that was really, really helpful.
Oh, so the student submissions you're talking about.
Yeah, that
Gotcha,
was.
gotcha.
Oh,
Okay.
I thought you were
Okay.
talking about the educational sessions.
No, I was talking about the educational sessions, but so I saw the student submissions and so we watched those, but I
Okay.
couldn't find the ones that we had done.
From
I remember there
2019.
was one on food security and there was
Oh,
something-
yeah, okay. I'll put it in the
We
chat, the
can talk
link
about
to the
that, yeah.
PDF in the chat.
Okay.
And that's going to link to those submissions because I'm interested in that now too.
Okay, well, there's two things. If you go on the, do you want to just go to that page
Yep.
since we're up there? It's you have the link, or do you want me to just put, okay.
Oh, it's not clickable. Okay. Sorry.
So if you look on down there, there's the session recordings. And if you click on that page, that has links to the session recordings. But if you go all the way down to the bottom, that's last year's. And then the page would have just gotten too long. So at the very bottom of the page, it says the session recordings. Click on that link there. I'm pointing at it. You can't see it. The one on the bottom.
Yeah, here, and I can turn on my.
So, and then those are all the sessions from that year. And it says view recording. Those links should work.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yep.
Now, if you go back to the original landing page, Andrea, then if you go to previous finalists, it has keep on going down. It has the finalists from last year. And then it's the same thing. If you go on to the PDF, it will have the ones from the previous year.
Yeah, so this is the 2020, 2021. All the different ones.
And those give you good examples of winners, but you know,
I'll probably show some of the growth.
yeah, right. So
from our first year to
things
now.
are evolving, right? So they weren't necessarily perfect, but they were the best in the crop that we got that year. And we don't expect it to be perfect, but you know, and we'll kind of highlight at the end when our tips, kind of things that could strengthen the submissions.
Yep. All right.
Any other questions on that?
The sessions? Yeah, and so just a little bit more. So the finalists are all the student submissions, and then just to be clear, these session recordings, what we mean by that is that in the past over the past 2 years, we've conducted and recorded educational sessions with a wide variety of experts, from tree experts to food waste experts to energy efficiency experts to electric vehicle experts, that were all or the vast majority of them were sessions that were geared for middle school and high school students. And so this is a great one, I think, crafting your digital story, that is really helpful for understanding the difference between, just like a report on a video versus what we mean by a digital story. But then we have all of these other sessions that provide really strong climate change links, and then give examples of other projects that students could be doing, guidance around how to get started with some of these different types of action projects. So there's tons of student-driven sessions here as well. And then, sorry, I'm scrolling so fast. But we also have kind of teacher professional development, so geared more for the teachers as well. So, variety of ways to think about how you can encourage change and let your students be leaders and you be more of the facilitator of their action. But yeah, so those are the two different kind of video recordings that we're just chatting about. But let me go back up to where we were.
And just usually the award ceremony, we try to do it within the first like week and a half of June, because after that, you know, things get crazy, especially for the high school kids.
Between graduation and
Mhm,
everything else that's going on. But
mhm.
yeah, so that's the time frame. One thing that I do want to point out is that we have this year, instead of the educational sessions, we're putting a lot of effort towards creating this really great in-person one-day teacher professional development that is free. And will be held in January. So on January 10th, we'll be having it at Rowan University, and January 18th, we'll be having it at the College of New Jersey. And we will be having plenary sessions around, you know, kind of building your own personal climate change knowledge. I know we're all science teachers here on the call, but the PD is really geared for not only science teachers, but all of the teachers in your school building. Because with the most recent 2020 New Jersey Student Learning Standards, in theory, climate change, or not in theory, in print, climate change is supposed to be incorporated across all grade levels, all content areas. So we're really trying to build support around all of our teachers, but, you know, our science teachers, but how can we as science teachers or as climate change educators be encouraging other content areas to also get involved? So this PD is definitely for middle school teachers of all content areas, high school teachers of all content areas, supervisors, administrators, whoever has an interest in learning more about how climate change education can be integrated more effectively at your school. So we strongly recommend checking it out. Hopefully, I know we're getting in that like kind of time frame of when PD needs to be approved, but you know, this is a really great opportunity that we have a number of great experts to be talking about some of these other topics, but then also we're building in time so that you can talk and collaborate with other colleagues from kind of the local area or across the state around kind of successes and challenges to bringing in climate change. So this is not technically a part of the challenge, but I just wanted to put it out there as another opportunity for learning more about bringing in climate change into your classroom, and maybe kind of also dovetailing what you're doing related to climate change teaching with climate action, which then would fit in with our New Jersey Student Climate Challenge. So yeah, maybe we could drop the link in the chat for the sign up if anybody's interested in that.
Yes, and Krista, that's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about. The registrations in Rowan are really low. We have right now about 100 people signed up, teachers signed up for, or teachers or administrators for the TCNJ event, but we purposely did one down south for the South Jersey folks, but there's only 11 teachers signed up. So if you could spread the word about that through your network, that would be greatly appreciated.
Sure, I will.
Great, thank you. But yeah, all right. So a little bit more about the challenge and some of the resources that we've created. So all of these links, as I said, will be active in the slides that we provide to you following our session, but heading back here to our landing page for the climate challenge, I just want to point out where some of these resources are available to you on our website. So this is a little bit more information. If you are just saying someone else, oh, just go check it out. A lot of the information that I'm talking about tonight is here, but also some additional information you'll glean from our session tonight. You'll see here's probably where you signed up. You can see the recording from last week. It's very similar content. We had slightly different people, so some of the questions were slightly different, but you know, these two sessions were essentially the same thing. Here's that link to the professional development if you want to learn more and sign up.
Yeah, I don't know if that copied well. I have to, I'll re-put it in because it didn't
Okay.
copy correctly.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, we will check on that. But yeah, so here's the registration form to register for the challenge. If you're interested, again, it's not like you're not overly committing yourself. You're just kind of letting us know that you're interested in participating and you're likely to participate. And that way we can, as more resources become available, we can send them out and keep you updated as well. There is a teacher guide that will download for you as a PDF with tons and tons and tons of information about the challenge, resources, or let's see, tips for getting started, ideas for projects, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a few minutes, kind of how we see the teacher's role in the climate challenge as more of a facilitator of student action, and have it be more student oriented as opposed to instructionally teacher driven, but we still see a lot of overlap. Thinking about some resources to integrate climate topics. There's a whole section, if you're involved with Sustainable Jersey for School, there's tons of actions and action descriptions that are very closely related to climate action that we've provided resources to, that you can kind of build from the Sustainable Jersey for Schools actions information, which has so many great resources there for your reference. Additional resources for getting started with project planning, doing the digital story itself, and then also what are the submission requirements. I can pull those up real quick. But so you'll see some just basic content information, or contact rather information for section 1, and then the narrative components is there's a narrative component and a video component. So the narrative component, we ask students to create a project summary, kind of explain the science, and that's a really important component that I'll talk a lot more about on my next slide. And then some of the project highlights, share some highlights or takeaways from the project. What was a challenge? What was the success? What were some new relationships maybe that you built? Things like that, of that nature. And then the actual video itself. So some, kind of providing us with some details, and then consent forms, all that good stuff. And then at the very end is the rubric, which I also will be going over in more detail and in a few slides. But
and just to set the stage relative to the video, we're looking at like a 3-minute video or less if you can tell your story in less time. So it's not intended to be like a 10 or 12 or even 5 or 6 minute video. It's short and sweet, and you'll see a couple of the finalists may have been a little bit longer, but like the sweet spot is about 2.5 to 3 minutes, maybe a little bit over, but yeah.
But yeah. So then we have student guides in both Word and PDF forms, because I know certainly I appreciated being able to modify, if you want to add in deadlines or if you're integrating this into your classroom. So just so that you can modify it easily as a Word document. Some of the like legalese kind of official rules are here, a consent and release form, and then the actual submission form itself. So this is a Google form to actually submit everything to us. And if you want to check it out in advance, what the Google form looks like, there's a PDF of it so that you can kind of check it out before you start submitting. And then, of course, here's a dedicated email that you can always reach out, and we will be monitoring it and getting back replies and advice and resources to you however we can help. All right. So that's all available on the Sustainable Jersey for Schools website, and can be kind of quick linked by this bit.ly. So what are our lessons learned from our past 2 years? Basically, we think of them as four big ideas for things to keep in the forefront of your mind as you get started with the project. First and foremost is to really highlight that connection between student action and climate change. Second is to think about really strategically about what is actually being completed by the students. So it has to be, we say tangible, but it doesn't have to necessarily be tangible by definition, but it has to be a very specific project. It's not a research paper or a research video about climate change or the impacts of climate change. We really want to see an action project connected to your submission. Third is really kind of spend some time thinking about the story that you want to tell about your action project. And fourth, as we really strongly encourage that, we've seen that it's really been most successful when when teachers are meaningfully integrating it into their school day or into their after school club. So really kind of foster that integration has been really in some of the projects we've seen most successful. But let's break those down a little bit more. What I mean by connections to climate change. So as climate change educators, I'm sure we kind of know the kind of steps of things that there are human activities, which we refer to as the causes of climate change, which is causing a whole bunch of increased greenhouse gases in our environment, right? And then as a result, that causes climate change. So this is like the super simplified version of climate change, right? And then as a result, because of climate change, we're seeing negative impacts on our environment. So we want to really make sure that student projects are not just talking generally about climate change. Instead, we want the student action projects to really either be focusing in on mitigation, which is decreasing the amount of greenhouse gases that are put out into the air to begin with, so kind of on the human activity side of things, or on adaptation, which is how can we decrease the impact of those negative effects of climate change. So really kind of honing in on either of these, either is fine, but really making sure that the action project that is being described in the story in the project is not like a general environmental, like if you just talk about recycling at a very superficial level, that's great that you're doing it, or picking up litter. That's great that students want to, get rid of litter in their local community, or they want to improve in recycling. But if they can't make that very direct link between how is recycling going to link to climate change, either through mitigation or adaptation, that's not really a very strong project. Same with littering. If they can't really make the connection between why decreased amounts of litter could have a climate connection, that's not a very strong project. So when we're thinking about kind of mitigation projects, there are so many different causes of climate change as a result of human activity. Everything from how we use fossil fuels for energy and heat, to transportation, to deforestation, and then various types of consumption, whether it's cement and industry or really kind of agriculture. But there's tons of ways that students could have an impact on any one of these causes. So if we're thinking about our fossil fuel use for energy and heat of our schools and our homes and our buildings, thinking about projects that relate very directly to energy efficiency and energy conservation, or advocating for increased renewable energy sources in your school building, in your school district, those are great projects to be thinking about. Thinking about anti-idling efforts or buy local, eat local campaigns, fantastic. And so this is where there is a very specific project. It's not just kind of like general learning about climate change. It's not purely an awareness campaign. It could be an awareness campaign about why anti-idling, why idling is bad, and kind of have a very direct effort to decrease idling in your school community. Then, it's not necessarily something that it's not like we're planting trees, but planting trees could be good. But, there's different types of projects that could really be inspired by the student interest in many different areas. So kind of thinking about on the mitigation side of things or the adaptation side of things. So how can our community be more resilient to some of the negative impacts of climate change? Well, we know there are very, all across the state of New Jersey, our state experiences very different negative climate change impacts, from severe weather and heavy rain events to drought and more heat waves. Sea level rise is more important for some communities than others here in the state. And so thinking about why a particular impact may be of more interest to your community, and then as a result, doing an adaptation strategy or an action project that is directly related to that is a great way to really tie in thinking about, when we're planting native species in particular areas, why that is going to help with against increased flooding, or why that's going to help stabilize riverbanks, et cetera. So thinking about something that makes sense for your community and is interesting to the students while still having that very strong connection. It's not just, oh, we like native plants, and so that's why we want to do it. Why are planting native plants in a particular area going to be helping combat the negative impacts of climate change? So really having the students see that direct connection between what they're doing and how it directly links to the cause and effect relationship to climate change. Questions about that? Okay. All right. So when we're thinking about what actual projects are. You know, again, so we're looking for something that has a school or community-based impact and has, that's some sort of like very specific outcome. So it could be projects that are incorporating a physical change to the environment, some sort of reduction in a climate change causing factor. So, you know, that's where like the anti-idling campaigns or just tree planting as a form of carbon sequestration. Those are great projects. But we could also think about civic engagement or advocacy projects. So working with your students to be prepared to present to the school board about why having a sustainability plan for your district or a renewable energy emphasis could be a really important project that isn't necessarily like doing something just yet, but it could lead to that. And that's a completely acceptable project. Similarly, having students both research and prepare and create funding proposals or grant applications is another really great way that, you know, it's not like we're asking you to install solar panels on your school building. But if you wanted to have the students prepare and write a grant about why this would be a good project and then actually submit for funding, that would be a great action project. And then, you know, hopefully you win the grant money and you get to do that, whatever that project is. While we have you thinking about grant funding, I just want to throw it out there that the Sustainable Jersey is their grants program with funding from PSE&G there's an open grant cycle right now. So lots of money available to support these types of projects. And it is absolutely a-okay to be your project or your students' projects, I should say, for the climate challenge, to be preparing the application, the grant, like explaining why this is an important project, and then actually creating the research grant or the funding proposal is an awesome project. And you could submit, let's see, when is it? March 10th. You know, and then you would still have plenty of time to create the digital story for our project, and hopefully you get funded and you get money from us for winning and money from them. That's a-okay. I think we kind of covered this already, but just wanted to make you aware that there are a wide array of different student sessions. As I kind of alluded to, there are some professional developments already available recorded online, and we have that upcoming in-person one. But if anybody has any ideas around other professional development needs that you feel you have to help support the project, I definitely would love to hear it. If you have any ideas, you want to throw them in the chat to help us memorialize them, that would be super helpful. And we'll, as you're thinking about that, we can kind of come around at the end of the session to see if anybody has come up with any great ideas. But in interest of time, I'll kind of moving forward. So our third lesson learned is around the digital story. So being able to really create a video that is going to be a digital story as compared to an informational video. What we see is really the difference between a digital story versus other videos is this idea that there is a personal storytelling element, a personal narrative that is going to be shared from your student's perspective to the viewers, to the video viewers. So with digital storytelling, we're really trying to help students find ways connect their personal emotional message to their audience and kind of connect the experience that occurred for the students and make it more meaningful for the audience as well. Help communicate that perspective and their perceptions and why it, you know, this was an important project for them to complete and why it was something meaningful to them about why this problem existed and how they could take action. You know, because a lot around climate change education, there's this, we want to try to avoid this feeling of hopelessness and dread around climate change, and completing climate action or learning more about climate action is a really effective way to combat that climate anxiety or that hopelessness. So that's why we really like this kind of digital story approach. And then finally, digital stories really highlight some of that collaborative effort across your students to kind of be thinking about that there's this small group that are taking action and having an impact, but they're also part of the broader piece of the puzzle, right? That they brought in resources from their community. Maybe they brought in from connections from other resources from different organizations, so on and so forth. So kind of thinking about that collaborative aspect as well. There's a number of great organizations out there that are already doing even climate related digital stories. And so there's ACE, there's Young Voices for the Planet, Green Ninja, and Lens on Climate Change. And again, all of these links will be active for you, but it's a wide array of kind of people who've been doing this for different periods of time. You know, Young Voices for the Planet and Lens on Climate Change have been doing this for a long time. ACE's Our Climate, Our Future is a fantastic video series, kind of that's really informative, yet engaging to students, that I think is a fantastic model. And then Green Ninja has a lot of curricular resources to support these types of projects as well. So you can check out as well. And then finally, our fourth a lesson learned is around this role of integration. And as I said in the beginning, and I'm sure you're probably aware, you know, climate change is much more than just a science topic. You know, it's not a content that we can fully cover in science class, because there are so many societal implications and connections to math and English language arts and music and dance and foreign language. There's so many different ways that we could bring in climate change connections across the entire curriculum. So thinking about ways that we can have this be school-based projects, community-based projects, you know, working when you're collaborating or working to create your digital story, maybe bringing in the TV production, you know, class or things like that, you know, thinking about recording, thinking about ways that we can be hitting some of these goals around climate change and learning about how we can take action and get our message out about taking action on climate change across many different content areas. So yeah, lots of kind of interesting ways of being able to do it because it's good practice and it's what the standards demand, but it also helps our students see like the real world kind of aspects of this. There are a number of great organizations out there who have really started to work hard to produce and share a wide array of climate change teaching resources, instructional resources. So CLEAN is kind of like the OG of climate science kind of educational resources. They have an enormous educational resource database that has so many amazing resources. They lean a little bit more climate science as compared to Subject to Climate, which is kind of, we'll show in a few minutes. I have some additional slides that kind of detail what kind of resources are available at that New Jersey Climate Change Education Hub here. The Department of Ed also has created recently a kind of climate education or climate change education resource page with some resources from the state. And then PRI, which is a Paleontological Research Institute up in the upstate New York, is another kind of like, they've been doing this kind of informal education and teacher professional development around climate change for a long time. And they have what is called the Teacher Friendly Guide to Climate Change, which really, I know, has expanded my own knowledge of climate change. And I've been doing this for quite a while, but it's a really great resource as well for kind of thinking about how can I think about climate change in different ways and bring it in. And they have a wide array of resources as well. I will pull up those slides about Subject to Climate, which is a bit more interdisciplinary in its focus, along with the New Jersey Climate Change Education Hub towards the end of the slides. But just let you know, there are tons of resources out there for you to be thinking about how you could bring this into both either your school day or your after school program. And it goes hand in hand. You don't have to think about just the resources that we share to you. You know, if you have strong relationships with colleges and universities or other nonprofits or other, you know, thinking about your local municipality green teams or your school green teams, we strongly encourage this kind of collaboration across other organizations as well. So just this slide more to get you kind of thinking about who do you already work with or who might be a good partner for you and your students to tap to help kind of get projects moving forward. Because a lot of these organizations have folks that are accustomed to doing outreach and are really well skilled in completing projects of the very similar nature to what your students want to do. So why not, you know, go to where experts are and have them assist your students and help guide your students through the process, that you don't have to figure it out all on your own, or your students don't have to figure it out on your own, and you don't have to be an expert either. There are many experts out there that can kind of be helping you to think through this process, in addition to us. Right. So finally, the rubric. So the rubric is split into two parts. We have the first part that I'll talk about is the video itself. And the second part rather is the actual written application that accompanies the video. So when you're focusing on just the video, there are three main elements that we'll be evaluating the video on. First and foremost, well, maybe not first and foremost, but first is the creative elements. So the kind of the storytelling component. And this is really what's going to set creative, engaging digital stories apart from a more just informational, kind of straightforward reading from the PowerPoint slides, like what I'm doing right now. Probably I wouldn't score very high in my storytelling, but by incorporating some of our own experiences, we can start to improve that. So a really quality submission is going to really connect with the audience in a creative way. The video itself, while short, is going to be interesting, engaging, and very clear in its purpose. We want it to be, we don't want it to just like tell a story about like a climate change impact and then like the last 10 seconds, like, oh yeah, and then we did this project. We want kind of the storytelling element to really be learning more about what the project was and how it was important to the students and how they accomplished all that they did or what challenges they experienced. The second component is really how clear is their explanation of the science and the climate science connections. And so how well are they able to describe that cause and effect relationship between human activity in the formation of greenhouse gases and climate change, and then also linking in the action that they were taking to help either mitigate or adapt to climate change. So were they kind of thinking about how to get rid of some of those human causing factors, or were they helping their community to become more resilient and adapt to our climate changed world? And then finally, the solutions. So really wanting to make sure that we're not just having a informational piece about climate change. Instead, we really want it to be focused on what actions your students take and how those were solutions oriented actions. That the action hopefully was innovative and practical and could be implemented easily in other schools. That doesn't say that you'll be knocked off points if you have some very unique situation going on at your school that kind of like it works well. So what we mean by that is like that students were able to access it and really kind of get their claws into doing this whatever the solution was for your project. That it wasn't kind of like, oh well, we couldn't really have any impact because we're just 6th graders or 11th graders or whatever it is. That it really, the students were driving the solutions based action. So like any proper rubric, right? So different descriptions as you go down in each kind of quality score, and you can kind of see some of the differences between a 4 and a 3 or a 2 or 1. So a max score on a video is going to be 12. And then the other 8 points for each project come from the actual written components. And so I know I showed them very briefly, but the kind of written science explanation that the students are going to be doing and how well they are describing that cause and effect relationship between their action project and climate change should be addressed in the video. But because, we're talking 3 to 5 minutes here at most, there's not going to be really a lot of time to really tell an engaging story and really dive deep into some of those scientific explanations. And so, that's why we're providing this opportunity as well for the students to really demonstrate what they've learned about climate change and how that is related to their action project. And then those other written components, so kind of thinking about some of the summary and the highlight and the inspiration, those types of components are also scored. And so we want them to make sure that the students' descriptions are well described, thoroughly detailed, kind of giving us more information about the completion of the project. And so that score is another 8 points for 20 points altogether.
With that said, we don't expect like a term paper on the topic,
no.
like a short essay that is clear on what, and on those things that Andrea described that we're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we have like word, suggested guidelines around word lengths as well. So you're not writing pages here. It's like a couple of paragraphs kind of situation. All right. And then I think that's kind of where I wanted to leave it. I wanted to pause and see if there's any really pressing questions, because then otherwise I would really like to show just some screen grabs from these newer resources that have been developed just in the past, I don't know, Renee, what would you say?
6 months. Yeah.
So I want to, take a pause, see if anybody has any questions. Okay. All right. Well, so New Jersey Climate Change Education Hub has been, kind of a newer development where teacher networks and what do we call them? Climate change fellows, right, Renee, are
And Krista is one of the fellows.
fantastic. So you want to talk about the slides, Krista?
No, here. But yes, I am one of the fellows, and I do have a couple lesson plans on this website.
Awesome, that's great. Yeah, so what they've really done is try to take some of the instructional resources that are out there, align them a little bit more closely, kind of evaluate them. So there's been a process of a review amongst, many different kind of educational kind of researcher kind of folks and teachers, and kind of thinking about how we can evaluate the lessons that are being provided to make sure they're quality and not just, off of teachers pay teacher, but hey, whatever, it has its place. But, we want something really robust here to be supporting interdisciplinary climate change education. And so there's all sorts of fantastic resources, kind of tells you, here's one by another New Jersey Student Climate Challenge alum, Carolyn McGrath, kind of gives you a little bit more. So here's an example of a arts integration one, but all sorts of great information and resources here about this new online repository, I guess we can say. So also a cool one that I'm really excited to explore more is where they're able to take news articles essentially about climate change and climate change impacts. And through this partnership, you as the teacher can kind of adjust, the users of the website can adjust, like, okay, what kind of Lexile score do I need? Or what kind of, is this more for upper elementary? Is this more for, my APES students? Is this for somewhere in between? Kind of adjust based on reading levels and other kind of your focus. So there's some cool adaptations there. And I think that's the end, right? But
So
yeah,
I was just going to add a couple more about the website. So the website is interesting because for both the resources and the lesson plans, you can search by a variety of different categories, like subject matter, grade level, what specific standards you want to address, and kind of what kind of resource type it is, if it's a video, if it's a like a guidebook. And then there are a few resources in there that are in different languages. And then you can also look for resources that specifically address like New Jersey like areas. So it's a really great resource, and the exemplar lesson plans are so great because you can download all the materials and customize them however you want. So they include, and you can chime in, Krista, but they include like the PowerPoint that you can download and modify, all kind of the different supporting resources or handouts that you can modify. So it's a great resource that you can customize, but it kind of, a lot of the work's already been done for you. Right, Krista, that's the kind of the goal.
Yeah, that's what they said. They wanted us to take the burden off of teachers who maybe don't feel comfortable teaching climate change yet, and give them all the materials that they need.
And the other thing is, if you go into the resource database and like search for student action projects, there's a bunch of resources that relate to specific projects that students could do. And I'm going to send a follow-up email tomorrow, and I'll give you the specific link for that. But that's another resource that you or your students can use when they're trying to decide what what kind of project they want to do.
I have a question. Is that this resource geared towards high school more than a middle school, or is it kind of cover all of them?
It covers all grade levels. And you can search by grade band, like in it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, so it's coming from, some of the parent organization that is working very closely is, you can see here, Subject to Climate, which, has lots of kind of really cool stuff. And I love their newsletter that they put out on the regular. And one of, one of the most recent ones was, focusing on how can you kind of like boost your own climate change knowledge, especially, geared for teachers who, maybe, as Krista said, maybe don't feel 100% confident in their understanding of like up to date, kind of quality climate change information. But then also, the next two strands were one around bringing in climate change into non-science topics. So thinking about all sorts of other connections. And then the third one is around creating action projects. So I was like, oh, this is like the perfect newsletter for the New Jersey Student Climate Challenge. And, so there's lots of great resources available on this website, the New Jersey Hub, but also their main, I think there's a lot of overlap between the two, but
Yes.
There's the Subject Climate puts out their own kind of like, constant content, so whatever it is, like newsletter on the regular.
Yeah, and I will, in my email tomorrow, I will forward you the links for the one, I think it's a blog post that that Andrea is talking about. And yeah, the Subject to Climate website and the New Jersey Climate Education Hub kind of overlap with each other, but the New Jersey one is more customized for our student learning standards and has the ability to search more detailed searches.
And Karen, I wasn't sure which link you were talking about, so I just figured I'd drop in those two that we were talking about more recently. So the New Jersey Climate Education.org is the hub that we were just talking about, and this is the direct link for the New Jersey Student Climate Challenge, which all those resources are kind of, we've cross-linked as well, but yeah.
Yeah, the hub was great. Thank you.
Sure, of course. I know we're knocking on 8 o'clock already, but any other questions or comments or ideas for where you feel you still need support, that we could, develop other resources and push them out to you down the road? Any ideas or thoughts?
I would just say I encourage you to participate in the challenge. The teachers and students that participated last year, and we were able to have the live award ceremony at Drumthwack. It was like a really great evening. They were allowed to bring like a parent or an adult with them to the event, and they were just all so excited, and really, it was a beautiful day, so they could walk around the grounds, and it was really a nice experience for them.
And they got recognized, in a very special way by the First Lady, in the governor's mansion, which is an amazing old, historic building and a beautiful location. So it made it feel a lot more special.
Yeah, she made an effort to go around and talk to the students and their parents, and they felt really important and proud. That was great.
I do have another question. Since this is my first time, and I'm actually starting the Sustainable Jersey initiative for our school as well. So a lot of undertaking in the past week or so. Am I late to the game to get started for my students on this? Like, how long should I be planning for it? Or can I just kind of infuse it throughout the couple of units and then allow the kids time to work on it on their own and then come back occasionally to me and work on it?
I think there's many different ways that you can accomplish it. I would not say that you're late in the game. you know, I will defer to Krista if you have any pointers or advice, but I would think definitely that you're not late in the game. You could certainly infuse it over several components. You know, the one thing that I will just advise is making sure that the action project ends up being something more specific. I can know, just my former curriculum, thinking about like, oh, well, I do a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit there, and that's fine, but making sure that it ends up as a cohesive kind of like student project. That would be my only, kind of thought, is if you're spreading it out across many different curricular units, that the students might lose momentum, because it does take a little bit of time. Certainly, I'm not going to lie. And especially to create the video that goes along with it, definitely, needs some instructional time, but yeah, Krista, I don't know if you have anything to add.
I mean, me and Maddie are just starting right now as well. We just had one meeting where students were generating their ideas. And so you're right on the same page as us, I think, as well. Well,
it's interesting because this ties in so well to what we're currently doing. Like, my students are actually doing an action plan to raise awareness about an endangered or invasive species and the current plight, then change the population momentum it has. But now I'm liking this a little bit more, because then it allows them for a little bit more collaboration as compared to I'm allowing them to do it independently. So now I'm trying to figure out in my head as we're talking here, and I'm listening to this whole presentation, as to how to change the plan I've already given them now to something new to possibly get this to work.
Well, it could be like, this is like the practice, like the smaller version. If they're having to do it individually, kind of, you could maybe scale that back, and then think for this next one, kind of, I don't know how much time you have in your curriculum for it, but that it could be collaborative in nature for one that is related to climate change, or there's certainly ways of linking endangered species and endangered species or invasive species, and thinking about climate change and climate impacts, and what action projects could be taken locally to support those different types of species, or eradicate or partially eradicate those. Yeah, fingers crossed. But yeah, so you could certainly have some tweaks to kind of modify it, or to like, this is stage one, and now work collaboratively to actually do the project, the action project, as opposed to just brainstorm it.
And then I would say also, just to be careful in kind of scaling the scope of the project. So like a really complicated project versus a less complicated, more straightforward project isn't going to score any more points, because it's as you review the rubric, it's all about making the connection. So if they're kind of taking a first step in a larger project, and they can kind of reflect on, at the end of their video, how what they've done in this first step has inspired them to go further, is fine too. So, just making sure that they kind of align, what they hope to accomplish with the project with how much time they have to do it.
And even if you're looking to overlap it with some of your Sustainable Jersey for Schools actions, that works too.
Yeah. So Kara, what school district are you from?
Sparta.
Oh, okay, great.
So we're all at opposite ends of the spectrum here.
Yeah, the state. Yeah. Yeah. So if you need any help on the Sustainable Jersey for Schools end, or have any questions about specific actions that might work with the Climate Action Project, please reach out to me. I'll be emailing you tomorrow, and you'll have my email address, but we're happy to schedule a half-hour meeting with your team to kind of go over what's involved with Sustainable Jersey and some tips on that. And then we're also happy to talk to you in more detail about specific actions that you might be interested in.
Sorry, my cat's biting me. We actually have a meeting scheduled for Friday.
Oh, okay.
With
Veronique or Joanna?
Contrary?
Yeah, Joanna.
Okay.
Yeah. Great. Okay.
She helped a lot with the challenge last year, so she'll be knowledgeable.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Great. Okay. Well, hopefully this evening was helpful for everyone, and kind of give you a little frame of reference for what this project is. And please feel free to reach out. Like, as Renee alluded to, we're definitely here to assist you in ways as to brainstorm projects, or kind of think about whatever you need to be work through it and be successful. So thanks so much.